Okay, hello, this is Jason Gist here with another tutorial. Just going to be going over move instructions and compare instructions in this video. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and create a new project. And I'm going to be using the emulator controller. And I'm just going to give my project a name. So I'm going to say move and compare tutorial. Okay, I'm going to select next. I'm in version 30 and I will be in slot 2 of the emulator chassis, as you can see here. And then I'll click finish and allow that to populate. And the reason why I'm doing move instructions with compare instructions is because I use these a lot in programming in order to move sequencing processes along based off different conditions, and I find it very helpful. So that's the reason why I want to do both of them. There's other ways of doing it, but this is one of the ways that I like to do it. And there's also other ways we'll learn how to use the compare instructions and move instructions and reduce the amount of logic that we actually have to write. Okay, so as we get going here, I have to go ahead and finish setting up my emulator so I can have inputs and outputs. So I need to uncheck this, go to other, and I have to set up my modules for an emulator. Now for you guys and gals that's in the class, you don't have to do this because you'll actually have the same controller we've been using, but I have to do this in order to oh, I forgot to put 16 in there. I'll get it. Okay, so I have to change this to 50 milliseconds. Okay, so now I've got slot 3 made, and now I need slot 4. New module. Going to go to other. And this is only used for the emulators. I got to give it a name. 1, 2, 2, 1, 16. This is going to be slot 4. Okay. 50 milliseconds. Okay. So now I should have everything that I need in my backplane of my emulator processor to start. So I'm going to go to main routine, and what I'm going to do is, what we want to do with a move is basically you're taking a value and it's in an indent format. That's the data type. So it's going to be some kind of numerical value of some sort, and we're going to move it into a destination. So let me first go get a move instruction. It's under the move/logical tab, and I'm going to bring that down. And I'm just going to put, the first one I'm going to put in here is, I'm just going to put a 1. So basically what this means is that in this instruction, when this instruction goes true, the source, whatever the source is, it can be a 1, a 10, 20, it doesn't matter. Whatever this value is going to move to the destination, and it's going to be a tag of some sort. So whatever that's going to be, and in this tutorial I'm going to call that sequence. So I'm going to say right click and new tag, and I'm just going to call that sequence. And again, it's going to be a dent data type, and we're going to leave it in the controller scope and hit create. So as you can see, the source is 1, destination is currently at a value of 0. And the only time that it will move this value of source into the destination is when this run goes true. And currently we're not online. As you can see, we're offline, and the power rails are not green, so we're not executing logic. So we know two things, is that one, we're either not online or we're not executing logic, because we could be in program mode. We could be online but in program mode, and the power rails will not be green. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a XIC, and I'm going to go ahead and pick an input, which is going to be 3I10, and this right here is just for my processor. So again, in class it would be, I think we're using the first push button is local 1I data 7, I believe, in class. So this right here is the way I'm going to set it up, just so that you can see very simply how this is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and download this in. I'm going to go to Communications, Who Active. I'm going to browse, find my controller, and I'm going to download. Give that a moment to download. Select download. Let it finish up. It should ask me if I want to go back to remote run, and I do. So I'm going to click yes. As you can see now, I'm in remote run. Power rails are green, so I am executing logic. Okay, so now all we have is one condition, which is this input. So there's only one thing that keeps this instruction from going true, and that's this input. So I should be able to toggle that by right clicking and hitting toggle. It won't let me do that. So I guess I have to go to the data table and turn it on this way. So you see now this is true. So the 1 moved into the sequence tag. So now the value of the sequence tag is 1. And that's simply all it is. But the conditions, whatever is in front of the move instruction, have to go true. And then whatever this value is, that's going to move in there. So let me turn that off. Okay. So now, to make this a little simpler, what I'm going to do is that I just wanted you to see that, it doesn't matter about the input. So what I'm going to do to make this a little simpler so I can toggle back and forth without having to go back and forth into that window is I'm going to make me a tag that just says input 1 PB, and it's going to be a bool data type controller scope. I'm going to hit create, and I'm going to hit yes. This way now I should be able just to select, instead of just select like this and hit Control T, and you see that it turned green, and Control T again and it goes back off. So it's a little bit easier to toggle back and forth that way. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make a copy of this rung. So if you click over here into the rung, make this blue, and you hit Control C, that's going to copy the rung, and hit Control V, it's going to make a copy of that rung. So let's just say now I'm going to make this a 2. But now instead of this right here, I'm going to say new tag input 2 PB. Okay, put that in there. Now I'm selected on that. I'm going to hit Control T. Control T again to turn it off. And you see that is whatever, if this run goes true, this will move this value. So let's just say if I change this right here to a 10. Now, to change the source, you have to go into edit mode. Just to say that if I make the toggle this again, Control T, turn that back off, then you can see it moves a 10 in. If I go back up to here, hit Control T to turn that one on, Control T to turn it back off, you can see it moves a 1. So all you need to know is it doesn't matter if there's 10 different conditions, 10 different XICs, whatever in front of this. As long as you have a path and makes this true, this rung true, then it's going to move that number in. So let's just say if I bring in another XIC, and let's just say if I say that PB1 or input 1 PB and input 2 PB has to be made, that means that I have to Control T to turn that one on and Control T to turn that one on. So it just needs 2 inputs to make this. And you see how that's kind of, this one's made and this one's made, and you can see how it overrides. And if we go back to this one and turn it off, Control T off, you can see how it's the last one. Turn it back on, it goes to a 10. Control T. And you'll see that it holds the number until it is actually being driven to another number. It will stay that number. It has to be driven to move another value in. Okay, so now you may say that, how is this useful to me? Well, that's the reason why now I'm going to show you we've moved a few values in around by using a move instruction, and here's why it's kind of to me valuable for like a sequencing or turning certain things on in a process and based on certain conditions and in a certain order. So this is what I'm going to show you. And you could say, well, you know, most of the time you're going to have different conditions. You know, let's just say if you have 5 different conditions, and we'll put those in. I'm just going to go ahead and take this out. Okay, so now I'm going to do a Control C, and I'm going to put in 3 more rungs for 5 conditions. Okay. And I'm going to take each one of these and put 3 PB. I'm just going to make tags, and these are just for this tutorial. Okay, so I want to go back and I want to change this to a 2. Again, because I just like using numbers that you know, are just like steps, or I'll use like a 10, 20, 30, 40, and that way if I ever need to skip in between, you know, add something into my project later, I always can go with a number that's in between those. I'll have, you know, 9 or whatever steps in between each of those where I could do something different if I needed to add something in. But it's easy enough to change. Okay, so I've got 5 different inputs now, and I've got numbers 1 through 5. So all we have to do now is, I think everybody knows what's going to happen. If I toggle this one, Control T, I'm going to move a 1 in. And remember, most of the time we're using momentary inputs of some sort, not selector switches, but you can use selector switches. But I'm just assuming it's a momentary. I'm just trying to, so I'll just toggle it on and back off. As you see, I hit Control T on and off, and you can see how the number, when that run goes true, whatever that value is in the source moves into the sequence. So that's very helpful. Okay, because now we can actually make decisions based off when this sequence is at a certain number. Now we can actually say when it gets to this number, I want something to happen. So you may say, how do we do that? That's where the compare instruction comes in. So what I want to do is show you that if input 1 comes on, I want this to happen. Okay, but I don't want this to happen unless this part has already happened. So this is where you got to learn a little bit about a process before you can make some of these decisions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring, it's in the compare instructions or under the compare tab. We're going to use an equal to instruction. So what this is going to do for us is that I do not want this input to be able to be made, or it can be made true. This instruction itself can be true, but the move will not take place unless I'm at the correct step in the process. So what I want to do is I want to say unless this condition has already been met, I don't want to be able to go to the next step. So what I want is I want to say that if I have not moved a 1 into the sequence, I do not want to be able to go to step 2. Okay, so now let me go back to here. I'm going to toggle this, toggle that to a 1. Now, because this source and A and source B are the same, that means they equal. Source A equals source B, that's what that means. And now when I hit or press the input 2, I can go to a 2. Toggle that back off. But if I was in a different, so let's just say I'm just going to type one of the other numbers in. If I'm in a 5, see now I'll just type that in, and everywhere that the sequence tag is, whatever that value is, it updates everywhere. And I just type that in. So now, if I toggle the input to PB, now the source 2 will not move to the source or to the sequence tag because this is not equals. This is not true. So remember, this is like an AND gate. This right here is this and this, because it's in series, has to be true in order for the result to go true. Okay? So if I was to leave that toggled on and was to just go ahead and move this and type in a 1, then it will automatically go true, and you can see now I moved a 2 into the sequence tag. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that off. So that's what we're going to get to, is that I don't want certain things to happen until I'm to that step. So this input could come on, but I don't care until I get to that step in the process. And I verify that step by using a compare instruction. I need to go into edit mode. And this one here, so here's the step before it. So until that step is finished, I do not want this input to be able to allow it to go to the next step. And I'm also going to put one in this one. And I'm just going to go down another number, move the same sequence tags. That's the nice thing about it. We're staying in the same, we're looking at the same tag in every one of them. So it should be fairly simple. So 4, I'll look at that sequence tag again, right? Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put a 0 back in here, because that's where we would start out with from scratch. And I also would do the same thing here. Let me do that. Is that I don't want the input 1 to be able to do anything unless I'm at a 0. And we'll get to this. Okay, let's get that. Okay, so now everything, all the inputs have got something after them, to where everything has got an input and an equals to instruction. So now that sequence is equal to 0, right here it's value 0. So sequence tag here is 0. Wherever the sequence is at, you can see those tags are all zeros. So now if I make this one Control T, you see it won't do nothing. I can turn this one on, I can turn this one on, and they will not do anything. It will not move anything because the compare instruction, the equal to instruction, is not true. So what's going to happen is that we'll have to make this one first, and when we make it, I'm going to toggle it back off. We've got a 1. Now since we've got a 1, now we have to wait till the second input is made, and then we'll go to a 2. Then we make sure the third input is made. We'll go to a 3. The fourth, go to a 4, and the fifth, and we go to a 5. So now after we get to a 5, we can say, okay, is that the last step in the process? You know, it may or may not be, but let's just assume that it is. And then at some point in time, you'll want it to be able to, once you get to that last step in the process, you'll have to validate that that process has taken place, and then you'll want it to go back to a 0. So let's just say that output, or this sequence 5, okay, let's just say that it is going to drive, I'm going to go back to a compare instruction. Let's just say sequence 5. So the number 5. So when we get to 5, we want to turn on an output. I'm just going to make a new tag so I can toggle this on and off real easy. And I'm just going to put, well, if I can spell, output 1. I want to turn this output on. And I want to make sure that, you know, if it's, that this, I just want to verify that this output comes on. And if you want to make sure that it stays on for a certain amount of time before you reset, before you can go back to 0, then that's fine. So, or you can do a, probably best to do like a one shot to make sure that it's on. I want to do new tag. I want to say one shot. I want to make this a dent data type. And then I want to go down to the bit level. This is a bool, so we got to go down to the bit level. So now what that's going to do is one shot that. Then I want to, come on. So when that comes on, I want to latch the output. So basically it'll keep the output on. Okay, which it is. And then once the output is on, what I could do is say, once output 1 is on, now I want to go ahead and move a 0 back into this sequence tag. See? So that means that I've completed all the different steps that I needed to complete in order to get to where my output comes on. Now, there could be different reasons of when your output goes off. So you could even say that, okay, that the output is going to, you know, go off once you get back to sequence 2. You could say that. So let's just say if we wanted to do that, or it could even be anything else. I mean, this is just one of those things where it all depends about the process. So let's just say that sequence has to be equal to 2, and then it's going to turn no, it's got to be not equal to 2. Because we basically want it to be normally closed, and when it gets equal to 2, then it will open this. Okay. So the output is on. So let's just say that, okay, right now we'll see that sequence is at 0. So I can't just go to here. So it has to make this input first. Toggle. Okay. Oh, this right here, and it has to have a one shot because it's keeping my output, it's keeping this driven to 0. Okay. So now we should be able to toggle. It goes to a 1. now if I go and toggle number 2, it goes to a 2, and as you can see now, because of that, it has interrupted that and the output is off. So now if I go to output 3 or input 3, toggle it off, I move to 3, you can still see that nothing's happened here because the sequence and the source is not equal to each other yet. So let's go to number 4, toggle off. Okay, you still see nothing down here is still true, but once I go to input 5, toggle it on and off, now you can see that because this had went to a 5, but it went so quick that you didn't see it, because as soon as the output came on, we went ahead and moved a 0 back into here. But we know it went to a 5 at some point because this went true and this came on. So now it'll just keep going right back through the sequence. So this right here should be the first input. Toggle it on. Toggle the second input. And you'll see that the output went back off. So that's really all there is to it with compare instructions and move instructions. This was just a short video just to kind of get you familiar with them. I will be making a longer video to show you more in depth about a little more in-depth programming and some of the problems sometimes that you may come up with. We'll be using this in class, but we'll actually be adding some other instructions with it. And I'll show you, we will be getting to the point where I show you very easy ways of sequencing through a process without having to use a bunch of timers, and it'll shorten up how many lines of logic that you actually have to have. So if you have any questions on this, please let me know. Thanks.